Shedeur Sanders. And I'm going to tell you why. I think he's being set up to fail. That's right, I'm going to say it. Okay, we are on national television, right? There's been 11 practices, if I remember correctly. He's been he's been playing against the third unit. He's fourth on the depth chart. And then suddenly you throw him into the start line, and he hasn't had any reps with the first team at all. Think about that. So you're just gonna throw him to the wolves like that, huh? I mean, you know, if he had first team snaps in practice.
Listen, if you're watching this right now, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button. We're grinding to get to 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you matters. We bring you the real stories, the insider information nobody else is talking about, and we need your support to keep growing. So subscribe right now, turn on notifications, and let's build this community together. Now let's get into what's really happening in Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns organization is imploding right in front of our eyes, and what we're about to tell you is going to shake this entire city to its core. Sources deep inside that building are telling us things have reached a point of no return. Kevin Stefanski might be coaching his last games right now, and most people inside that facility already know it. They're just waiting for ownership to make it official. The whispers started earlier this week, but now they're getting louder, and what triggered all of this involves Shedeur Sanders in ways nobody saw coming. We've been working our connections inside that organization for the past 72 hours, and what they're telling us paints a picture of complete organizational meltdown. This isn't speculation anymore. This is real information from people who are actually in those meetings, who hear these conversations, who see what's happening behind closed doors, and they're all saying the same thing. Stefanski's relationship with ownership has completely deteriorated, and it all centers around how the team is handling their quarterback situation. Here's what actually went down, according to multiple people who were either in the room or heard about it immediately afterward. Stefanski allegedly held a private meeting with several team leaders and coaching staff where he openly questioned the organization's decision to elevate Shedeur Sanders so quickly. Sources tell us he specifically said something along the lines of, "We're treating this kid like he's already proven something when he hasn't earned anything yet." Those words got back to the wrong people, and that's when everything started falling apart. Players heard about it, front office heard about it, and ownership definitely heard about it. Now think about the timing of all this. Cleveland brought in Shedeur Sanders with massive expectations. The city immediately fell in love with him. Fans were already buying jerseys before he played a single snap. The media built him up as the franchise savior. And then their head coach allegedly makes comments questioning whether all that hype is deserved. You can imagine how that played with everyone involved. One source inside the locker room told us straight up that once word got around about what Stefanski said, veterans started choosing sides, and most of them sided with Shedeur. That tells you everything about where the power dynamic actually sits right now. But it gets so much deeper than just one comment in one meeting. What we're hearing is that this has been building for weeks. Stefanski apparently felt blindsided by ownership's decision to commit so heavily to Shedeur without consulting him properly. He reportedly believed he had more time to evaluate the quarterback situation organically, but instead ownership pushed for an accelerated timeline. So you had a head coach who felt undermined and an organization that felt their coach wasn't fully buying into their vision. That's a recipe for disaster in any NFL building. The real breaking point allegedly came earlier this week during a face-to-face meeting between Stefanski and Jimmy Haslam. Multiple sources confirmed this meeting happened, and they all describe it the same way: explosive, contentious, career-ending. We're told Haslam confronted Stefanski about his handling of the quarterback situation and his perceived lack of enthusiasm for organizational decisions. Stefanski reportedly didn't back down. He allegedly told Haslam directly that ownership interference is destroying any chance this team has at success, and that you can't run a football operation like it's a circus. Those are fighting words in any organization, but especially in Cleveland, where Haslam has a history of heavy involvement in football decisions. One person familiar with what happened told us that Stefanski knew exactly what he was doing during that meeting. He was essentially forcing ownership to either back him completely or move on from him, and based on everything we're hearing, ownership chose to move on. Within hours of that confrontation, people inside the facility started hearing rumors about coaching changes. Assistant coaches began receiving calls from agents. Players started trying to figure out what was happening through group texts and back channels. The chaos didn't stay contained for long. By Thursday Wednesday morning, sources tell us ownership had already begun preliminary discussions about potential coaching candidates. They're not just talking about who might replace Stefanski if it comes to that. They're actively identifying people, reaching out through intermediaries, doing background work. One front office source used a specific word that really stood out. They called Stefanski's departure inevitable, not possible, not likely, inevitable. That's how convinced people inside that building are that this is already over. And you can see it playing out in real time if you know what to look for. Players are reportedly keeping their distance from Stefanski in team meetings. Assistants are staying quiet instead of defending their head coach publicly. And Shedeur Sanders has remained completely silent through all of this, which somehow makes the whole situation even more intense. His silence speaks volumes. He's not defending Stefanski. He's not criticizing him either. He's just staying focused on football while the organization tears itself apart around him. Social media exploded once these rumors started circulating. Fire Stefanski was trending again overnight. Fans are connecting all the dots themselves. One post that went viral said if these rumors are true, then Stefanski picked the worst possible battle because you can't survive when the entire city has already chosen Shedeur as their guy. Another fan account with a huge following posted that Stefanski should have known better than to challenge the kid Cleveland has already adopted as their franchise savior. The court of public opinion has already rendered its verdict. Even national media is starting to pick up on what's happening. ESPN mentioned rumblings inside Cleveland about potential organizational changes during their late night segment. Other outlets are starting to ask questions about whether Stefanski's job security is actually solid. The speculation is building momentum, and once that starts in the NFL, it's almost impossible to stop. Perception becomes reality very quickly in this league, but let's zoom out and talk about what this really represents beyond just coach versus player drama. This is complete organizational dysfunction on full display. Cleveland assembled what should be a competitive roster. They invested heavily on both sides of the ball. They created an infrastructure designed for immediate success. And instead, they're imploding before the season even reaches its midpoint. That's not just bad luck. That's fundamental organizational failure. Every piece of this disaster traces back to dysfunction at the highest levels. Stefanski isn't blameless here. Sources suggest he became increasingly combative and difficult to work with, which alienated people who initially supported him. But the root cause is ownership making football decisions, forcing quarterback choices and undermining coaching authority consistently. One veteran player, speaking on condition of anonymity, reportedly told a local reporter that this franchise can't get out of its own way. They have talent. They have coaches who understand football, but chaos at the top poisons everything else. That quote captures exactly what's wrong in Cleveland right now. This isn't about lacking talent or resources. This is about organizational hierarchy being completely broken, and league executives around the NFL are watching this situation very carefully. Multiple sources tell us Cleveland has become a cautionary tale discussed in front offices across the league. Other teams are studying what's happening there as an example of how not to run a franchise, how not to handle coaching authority, how not to manage quarterback decisions, how not to maintain organizational structure. One AFC executive told us bluntly that Cleveland's situation is a masterclass in dysfunction, and every team evaluates their own protocol specifically to make sure they never end up like this. That's damning. When other organizations are using you as the example of what not to do, you've reached a level of dysfunction that's hard to come back from. And the really scary part for Browns fans is that this feels painfully familiar. Different names, but same organizational collapse. Same preventable disaster unfolding exactly as everyone feared. Here's where the story takes another turn that nobody saw coming. The same sources telling us Stefanski's job is in serious jeopardy are also telling us the Browns are already preparing for what comes next. And what comes next is Shedeur Sanders becoming the undisputed face of this franchise without any coaching resistance whatsoever. Ownership has reportedly already identified potential interim coaching candidates who are specifically willing to build everything around Shedeur's strengths. We're hearing names like former offensive coordinators with strong quarterback development backgrounds, assistants known for innovative offensive schemes, even college coaches who have existing relationships with the Sanders family. This isn't vague speculation. This is active preparation happening right now inside Cleveland's front office. They're doing the groundwork. They're having the conversations. They're positioning pieces for what happens after Stefanski is gone. And based on everything we're hearing from multiple credible sources, they're not doing this as a contingency plan. They're doing this as preparation for what they believe is coming very soon. Meanwhile, Shadir Sanders is handling all of this with remarkable maturity and composure. While organizational chaos swirls around him, sources say he arrives early every day, stays late every night, studies film obsessively, and maintains complete focus during practice. One teammate allegedly described him as acting like none of this drama affects him at all, which somehow makes everyone believe in him even more. That's real leadership, not vocal, not dramatic, just consistent excellence while everything around him burns. But don't mistake his silence for being passive or unaware. People close to Shadir's camp suggest he understands exactly what's happening. He recognizes that Stefanski potentially being fired removes the final obstacle between him and complete organizational control. He knows the city has already chosen him over the head coach. He understands his moment is coming, and he's preparing for it. That's why he stays quiet. That's why he focuses on his work, because he knows the situation will resolve itself in his favor if he just keeps doing what he's doing. The really fascinating dynamic here is how quickly power shifted inside that building. Just a few weeks ago, Stefanski was the established head coach with organizational backing, and Shadir was the rookie trying to prove himself. Now the entire power structure has flipped. Shadir has the city, he has the fans, he has most of the locker room, he has ownership's confidence, and Stefanski is reportedly on the verge of being fired. That's how fast things can change in the NFL when organizational politics get involved. So what actually happens next? That's the question everyone is asking right now. Based on everything we're hearing from multiple sources inside that building, it's only a matter of time before Cleveland makes this official. The Browns front office reportedly held an extended meeting earlier today, and while nothing official has been announced yet, multiple sources believe Stefanski could be out within days. One insider told us they're just working through details now, contract language, timing, public messaging, but the actual decision has already been made. If that's true, and every indication we're getting suggests it is, then Cleveland is about to enter completely uncharted territory. Mid-season coaching change, rookie quarterback ascending to franchise centerpiece amid organizational upheaval, owner-driven football operations, championship aspirations colliding with institutional dysfunction. This is the kind of situation that either becomes a rallying point for a team or completely destroys their season. There's very little middle ground. The contractual implications alone are significant. Stefanski still has years remaining on his deal. Firing him mid-season means Cleveland eats that money while also paying whoever comes in next. That's expensive even for an NFL owner. But based on what we're hearing, Haslam has reached the point where he's willing to absorb that cost just to move on. That tells you how damaged the relationship has become. When ownership is willing to pay tens of millions of dollars just to get rid of someone, the situation has deteriorated beyond any possibility of repair. There's also the question of what this does to Cleveland's season. They still have playoff aspirations. They still have talent on the roster. But firing your head coach mid-season sends a message to everyone that the organization is in crisis mode. Players lose confidence. Opponents smell blood. The media narrative becomes about dysfunction instead of football. It's very difficult to win consistently when all of that is swirling around your team. But ownership apparently believes that keeping Stefanski is worse than firing him. They reportedly feel that his presence has become toxic to what they're trying to build, that his resistance to fully embracing Shadir Sanders is holding back the entire organization, that his confrontational approach with ownership has made collaboration impossible, so they're prepared to make the change regardless of what it costs or how it looks externally. The assistant coaching staff is watching all of this very carefully. Some of them came to Cleveland specifically to work with Stefanski. If he gets fired, their futures become uncertain immediately. Other assistants might see this as an opportunity to move up if they position themselves correctly, and there are definitely assistants on that staff who are more aligned with ownership's vision than with Stefanski's approach. Those coaches are probably feeling pretty good about their job security right now. Players are in a difficult position too. Some of them are loyal to Stefanski and believe he's been treated unfairly. Others are excited about what Shadir Sanders represents and see coaching change as necessary for the team to reach its potential. That creates division in the locker room, which is poison for team chemistry. Winning teams have unified locker rooms where everyone is pulling in the same direction. Cleveland right now has factions and competing loyalties. That's not sustainable. The fan base is completely split on this situation. Some Browns fans believe Stefanski has done enough to deserve more time, and that ownership is being unreasonable. Others think change is overdue, and that Stefanski never fully committed to building around Shadir. Social media is a war zone right now, with fans arguing passionately on both sides. That division extends beyond just online discourse. It's affecting the atmosphere at games. It's impacting merchandise sales. It's shaping the entire narrative around this franchise. National media is going to have a field day when this becomes official. Cleveland has been a punching bag for decades because of organizational dysfunction, and this situation feeds directly into that narrative. Analysts will question Haslam's decision-making. They'll debate whether firing Stefanski was justified. They'll scrutinize every aspect of how this went down, and Cleveland will once again be the example of NFL dysfunction that everyone points to. But here's the really important question that nobody is talking about enough. What if this doesn't work? What if firing Stefanski and going all in on Shedeur Sanders doesn't produce the results ownership expects? What if the problems run deeper than just coaching? What if organizational dysfunction continues regardless of who is calling plays? Then Cleveland will have burned through another head coach, wasted another season, and set themselves back even further. That's the risk ownership is taking by making this move. The alternative perspective is that sometimes organizations reach a point where change is necessary regardless of risk, that keeping a coach who has lost ownership's confidence is worse than making a move, even if the timing isn't perfect, that committing fully to your young quarterback is more important than protecting a head coach's feelings. That's apparently where Cleveland ownership has landed on this decision. One thing is certain, regardless of what happens next, this situation has done serious damage to Cleveland's reputation around the NFL. Free agents will think twice before signing there. Coaching candidates will have concerns about organizational stability. Other teams will use Cleveland as an example when negotiating with their own coaches about autonomy and authority. The ripple effects of this dysfunction will impact the Browns for years, regardless of how the immediate situation resolves. We're also hearing that this situation has created tension between football operations and ownership that goes beyond just Stefanski. General Manager Andrew Berry is reportedly trying to navigate between ownership's vision and football reality. Some sources suggest he's been caught in the middle, trying to maintain credibility with coaches while also executing ownership's directives. That's an impossible position, and it's unclear how long Berry can maintain that balance. The quarterback room itself has become incredibly awkward, according to people familiar with the situation. Everyone knows what's happening. Everyone knows the stakes. Everyone knows that Shedeur is the future regardless of what happens with Stefanski. That creates a strange dynamic where other quarterbacks on the roster are essentially playing for backup roles while organizational chaos unfolds around them. It's not an environment conducive to development or competition. Looking ahead, if Stefanski does get fired, the next few weeks will be absolutely critical for Cleveland. They'll need to identify an interim coach quickly. They'll need to stabilize the locker room. They'll need to refocus everyone on actually winning football games. And they'll need to manage the media circus that will inevitably follow. That's a lot to handle mid-season while still trying to chase playoff hopes. The Shedeur Sanders factor cannot be overstated in all of this. His performance over the next few weeks will either justify ownership's faith in him or raise questions about whether they made the right choice. He's under enormous pressure even though he's staying quiet publicly. Every throw will be scrutinized. Every decision will be analyzed. Every game will be treated as evidence one way or the other about whether Cleveland made the right call. Based on everything we're hearing from our sources, an announcement could come at any time. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe early next week, but people inside that building are convinced it's coming. They're preparing for it. They're positioning for it. The only question is timing and messaging. The actual decision appears to already be made. This is the reality of the modern NFL. Organizational politics matter as much as wins and losses. Quarterback decisions drive everything. Coaching authority gets undermined by ownership interference, and dysfunction at the top poisons everything below it. Cleveland is living proof of all of those dynamics playing out simultaneously. For Browns fans who have endured decades of disappointment, this feels crushingly familiar. New names, same organizational patterns, same preventable disasters. The question is whether Cleveland can learn from this and build something stable, or whether they're destined to repeat these cycles indefinitely. Right now, the answer to that question is very unclear. What is clear is that major changes are coming, and they're coming soon. Stay tuned because this situation is developing rapidly, and when the official announcement comes, and it will come, Cleveland Browns football will never be quite the same.